My dad, I joke all the time. I tell him he did the hard part. Going from 0 to 9 million, in my eyes, is more difficult than going from 9 million to 100 million or 200 million.
You and your brother stepped into your father's $9 million business in 2015. What were the first big mindset or structural changes you made?
When we stepped into the business, I wish, Mick, to get to your question, I wish I could take credit for having all the best ideas that put us on this path of really high growth. But the reality was, when we joined our business, we concurrently made the decision to join an industry best practice association. So I would say it wasn't us coming up with all these great ideas. It was more a story about how do we execute.
My guest today is Chris Hoffman, the CEO of HB Solutions Group. HB Solutions Group is a holding company that invests in and manages a diverse portfolio of companies across the US. You've scaled Hoffman Brothers and the business from 10 million to over 150 million with no outside capital.
Yeah, we're blessed to be in an industry that is over 50% gross margins.
Who is this person behind this business? My guest today is Chris Hoffman, the CEO of HB Solutions Group. HB Solutions Group is a holding company that invests in and manages a diverse portfolio of companies across the US. Thanks a lot for coming to the HoldCo Builders podcast, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
You and your brother stepped into your father's $9 million business in 2015 with a clear respect for what your dad had built, but also a huge ambition to take it further. When you look back now, it was 10 years ago, what were the first big mindset or structural changes you made that set the trajectory towards 200 million?
Yeah, really good question. And I think it'd be useful to talk a little bit about the foundation my dad had built for Joe and I, and then I'll transition into answering that question. Yeah, my dad, I joke all the time. I tell him he did the hard part, right? I mean, going from 0 to 9 million, in my eyes, is more difficult than going from 9 million to 100 million or 200 million. And he had that entrepreneurial grit, that courage. He had 4 kids. He was 29 years old, and he quit his job behind a desk as an engineer to go jump in a service truck and run residential HVAC calls, which back in the 1980s, people were telling me it was nuts, right? The trades weren't always held in as high of a regard as they're held today. So when I stepped into the business in 2015 with my brother Joe, I had just come out of the Marine Corps, used a GI Bill for graduate school. My brother Joe, like my dad, was a mechanical engineer, and he was working for Trane, the big HVAC equipment OEM. He was a technical sales engineer. But we put our heads together with our dad, and our dad really wanted this business to remain private and family held. And what we realized through those conversations that there was a lot of alignment around that commitment to long-term private ownership, what we thought we could build together. And so when we stepped into the business, I wish, Mick, to get to your question, I wish I could take credit for having all the best ideas that put us on this path of really high growth. But the reality was, when we joined our business, we concurrently made the decision to join an industry best practice association. And it's kind of a unique organization inside of the HVAC, plumbing, electrical world, where there's this member-owned, about 1,000 companies that belong to it across the United States, Canada, and Australia. And it basically is a learning and sharing organization where we all pay these dues into this organization, who hires a bunch of business process experts, coaches, and trainers. Those folks look out across the 1,000 members. They identify things that are working really well, and then they refine and build this process playbook. And so we got access to this process playbook when we became members of this organization in 2015. And this process playbook in our industry, it touched everything from what information you need to capture when you're booking an inbound customer service call. How do you prioritize those calls and triage those calls? When you show up at somebody's home, what is a customer service process that allows you to create consistent, predictable results in that home? And so all these different processes, we just got to work in 2015 introducing this playbook and putting these processes into our business. So I would say it wasn't us coming up with all these great ideas. It was more a story about how do we execute. We've seen what this process playbook looks like. Now let's be really good at change management and integrating all these learnings into our own business. And I will say, over time, we've gotten a lot better. Now that we've learned the business, we're 10 years in. I think we've, in some ways, moved beyond parts of that, and we've begun to build some of our own playbooks and refine and improve and develop new playbooks. And I think that's served us really well.
Guys, one of the biggest lessons already from this podcast is the importance of being part of a mastermind. That said, this episode is brought to you by ScalePath. And ScalePath, they built a network of over 2,000 business owners across the US and Europe. And when you book a free call with their CEO, Rand Larson, today, he will personally introduce you to up to 3 vetted operators in your area. And as of one of the listeners of this podcast, Nathan has said, men will literally join Rand's group instead of going to therapy. So ScalePath is really like a part of an operator group, part growth engine, and part emotional support line. So to get to know 3 vetted operators in your area, go to joinscalepath.com and book a free call with their CEO. So again, relationships can be your huge edge. Now back to the episode. Just to understand, it has like 1,000 members. It's like a membership which you pay yearly. You come together. It's like a mastermind, or how does it work?
Yeah, so yes, you pay yearly dues, and that just gets you in the door, right? But then you get assigned coaches, business coaches, and they're by function. You have your business coach, you have your inventory coach, your software coach. So with those annual dues, you get a suite of coaches that are trainers and advisors to you. But then they sell to their members. They'll sell access to all of these coaching and trainings, live and in-person training. So a 3-day workshop for your service professionals on how to provide great customer service. It's a 6-step process. Or service management classes to teach your frontline leaders, your service managers, your field managers, how do they execute one-on-ones and coach and motivate and inspire, and what KPI should they be looking at? So it's a suite of content that, in addition to paying your membership dues and getting access to the coaches, you can purchase. Almost think of it like your outsourced learning and development or your outsourced training arm inside of these types of businesses.
And being brutally honest, you and your brother, how helpful has this been for you? Like doing this the way you have done versus you just, obviously you can learn all this from your father, but communicating this with folks at your age, I think it's maybe better, high energy and everything. So my question is like, without this community, this mastermind,
Yep.
Would it be the same for you like it is today? The results, how has it been?
Yeah, short answer is no, right? I think the lesson for anybody is, heck, the biggest mistake I almost made was I had just come out of the Marine Corps. I was a captain in the Marine Corps. I just got my MBA. I thought I was pretty dang smart. I thought I could figure all this stuff out on my own. And the biggest mistake I almost made was letting my ego, my hubris, allow me to say, I don't need this organization. I can go do it on my own, right? And I think the lesson for any entrepreneur, whether it's an organization like this, that's a best practice organization with 1,000 members, or whether it's just go finding the category leaders in your industry and figuring out how to get them to open the door and show you what's working and what's not working. Like, the lesson is go learn from others, because a lot of people have paved these roads in front of you and learned a lot of the hard lessons that you're going to learn if you don't go and engage with them. So yes, it accelerated our growth. Now, I will say, if you look at, like, for this best practice organization, they would post publicly through some of these financial surveys. You could see median growth rates. And so, like, you would see in our industry, on average, companies would grow at 3 to 5% a year. Average members of this organization were growing double digits, right? Anywhere from 10 to 12, 15% a year. We had an 8-year CAGR of roughly 35%. So we had access to the same process playbook and others. But again, I think where we were really effective, perhaps more so than most, is through our ability to manage that change, hold folks accountable, introduce process, inspire people to do better and want to do more. And I would say all of that's against the backdrop of our core business when we started was in St. Louis, Missouri, which is a market that doesn't have a lot of population growth, right? Typically 1 to 3% a year. So to see those kind of organic growth rates, it means we're taking share. Rather, now we're in markets like Nashville and Denver, where heck, there were points in time in recent years past where even if you were just growing at market population growth rates or the rate of housing starts in those markets, you were growing at almost double digits.
Now I'm trying to understand, where does the age coming from? Like, there are 1,000 members. How many of those were your competitors on your area back then, or it was like a secret group, or how does it work?
I would say it's closer to the secret group than it is a competitor. So they have market area caps. So they don't just let anybody in, right, to these organizations. They want to curate people who are going to embrace this playbook, who are going to be high performers, who want to grow their business and have the ambition to do so. And so they want to curate a group of folks that are sort of values aligned, ambition aligned on a number of different dimensions. And then you have to apply, right, to join this organization. So it's not just if you can come and you can write a check, you're in. And then they do have those market caps. It's based on the population. So for the size of an MSA, the population of an MSA, there'll be a certain number of licenses or members that they'll allow given that population size.
When you take your entrepreneurial friends, fellow entrepreneurs, do you oftentimes discuss that they should do something similar, like take part of similar type of masterminds, or how has it been? Because I see in your case it's been a game changer, definitely.
Totally. So this organization is just one of many that I engage with, right? And absolutely. I mean, I think for any entrepreneur, you need to be asking yourself, how can you equip yourself with the tools, the skills, the knowledge to help accelerate your own growth as a leader, but also the growth of your organization. And if you're not looking externally and looking to put yourself in rooms with people who've been where you want to go, who are super sharp, who are ambitious, then you're missing some serious opportunity to unlock value for you and for your organization. So yeah, whether it's that organization we've been talking about, whether it's organizations that people probably recognize like YPO or EO, another one I like a ton is the Tugboat Institute, right? That's a group of companies, members, about 350 across the whole globe, not just a U.S. concentration, but across the whole globe, who are committed to purpose-driven, long-term private ownership, right? So there is no private equity in there. It's some really iconic multi-generational brands and businesses, some that are 6 and 7 generations old. So really cool to be in a room surrounded by folks who are focused on value creation over that time horizon, right? And building these really resilient, enduring, privately held, purpose-driven businesses. So short answer is yes, get in the room with those people. Anybody, doesn't matter what you're doing, like you should be asking yourself how you can get connected with and learn from folks who've gone before you.
When doing research on you, you have this pinned tweet on Twitter with 9 defining moments on my journey from mediocre college student to CEO of a business approaching 200 million. This is a great list, and I would like to discuss one takeaway number 5, which is like maintaining a 5-year commitment to reinvest every dollar of profit that the business made back into growing the business. Paid myself $80K a year for those 5 years. Tell me about those years and maybe the lessons and the reality, and maybe the, if we can say, the urge to maybe pay more and live a better life than you did.
Yeah. Yep, really good question. So when we transitioned the business from our dad, he gave us seller financing. We had a note to pay him, right? So there was that was sort of an outflow of cash, right, to support sort of that debt service in connection with the seller financing. So we had that in place, and then the reality is, if on top of that, if you're growing a business, growth is expensive, right? For us, growth means we're buying new trucks. Which today are crazy expensive, right? They're $50,000, $60,000 for service vans that used to be $35,000 in 2019. So you're buying these trucks for whatever it is, $50,000, $60,000. You're putting another $10,000 of shelving packages and letters and wraps on them, and then you're putting another $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 of inventory in them. You have onboarding costs with the new hire, with uniforms and employees and technology, all the stuff that they need to be successful. So all suddenly hiring one new person, a service tech, is $100,000. So if you're going to grow quickly and I'm going to hire 20 new service professionals, like that's $2 million. And then I've got debt service on the seller note. So the reality is, like, any money that would come out of the business at those early stages was coming at the expense of my ability to meet those other commitments in those organizations. And my priority as a business leader, and it still remains true today, is I want to prioritize the interests and the growth of this organization more so than I want to prioritize improvements in my lifestyle, right? And you can have that same conversation at any point along the journey, because it's really easy to get comfortable and say, oh, well, now we're making $1 million a year. Now I'm going to shift how much I'm spending and how much cash I'm taking out. I'm going to rest on my heels here and maybe not push as hard. Or maybe it's people wait and say, well, now I'm at 2, or now I'm at 5 million. Now I'm going to rest and I'm going to be happy here. We just continue to fight that sense of complacency to ever feel like we've made it. And we just feel like we got to continue to earn it and make it and sort of pursue sort of that next stage of growth and ambition, no matter where we are. And that exists today too. We're still pushing our chips back into the center of the table as we've done additional partnerships, acquiring new businesses, entering new markets, new service lines, right? That all costs a lot of money. And we just keep having that commitment to reinvest those dollars back in the business. I do pay myself more than $80,000 a year now, but still certainly have the interest of the business, prioritizing reinvestment in the business above improvements in any shareholder's lifestyle.
Hi friends, Brandon and Spacebar Studios are my go-to team for demand generation. They are offering a special offer to HoldCo Builders followers, a free 90-day growth roadmap for your business. Get 2 to 3 concrete steps you can take today to grow your demand generation engine. Head over to spacebarstudios.co to claim your growth roadmap, as there is limited availability. First come, first served. Now, back to the show. Now, point number 7, creating an advisory board, filling it with folks who've challenged me and augment my knowledge gaps. How quickly did you make those changes with your brother that, okay, we need those people on our advisory board, number 1, and how did you approach them? What was the message, like you reaching out to them? What was the dream or goal you were selling to them? Why they should join you?
Yeah, really good. What's interesting is most of the people that you want on your advisory board, I would say most of them are not doing it because of the money, right? They're doing it because they believe in you, they believe in your mission, they're excited about what you're building, they love the energy, they love the other people that are coming on the board who are equally successful, and again, not there for the check, right? Our advisory board checks, members are getting like $5,000 a meeting, right? So they're not getting rich off these meetings. So how did we think about constructing the board? I think that's the important question. And so how I think about it is, I'll start with what you don't do. You don't say, oh, that person's super successful, let me go get them on my board because they're amazing and look at what they've done. I just want them on my board because they're smart and look what they've done. We start with a different approach, and we say, where is our business today? Like, take stock of what expertise and knowledge and resources and competencies do we have, and then we look at where we aspire to go. What is our strategy? What sort of initiatives are we executing on? And then I look at what's that gap in between. Like, what knowledge and expertise and resources do I lack that'll prevent me from executing on that strategy and getting to where we want to go? And then with the board, I think about, I'm going to bring in these advisors, these thought leaders, these experts, these veterans, who can augment my knowledge, right? Who can make me smarter, who can fill those gaps, those experience gaps, knowledge gaps, expertise gaps, that will help me execute on that strategy more successfully, get there faster, get there with less turbulence. And so that's the way I thought about it. So in our case, it's like, okay, we had the desire to be acquisitive. Okay, how do we think about people who have experience acquiring, integrating, thinking through that sort of thing? We wanted to build shared services. Okay, how do we think through that? Technology is changing very quickly, and we want to be a business that's on the leading edge of technology. So went and got the president of a really well-known manufacturing brand in the HVAC space, right? That was running a really big business to come in and bring that perspective to our board. We're a family business, so how do I make sure I'm bringing in best practices around governance and succession, and how do I make sure my brother and I work together really well? And I think the way you do that is you go get folks who are experts in that arena. So we got a CEO of a really successful family office, single family office, and she's been awesome. She actually, that person serves as the only fiduciary board member beyond my brother and I in our organization. So it kind of serves as that an important role from a governance, succession, sort of corporate hygiene perspective.
And numbers wise, how many people you approached? How many were like, okay, let's do it, and how many were like, nah, I'm not too busy, or what you're trying to do is not for me?
That's funny. I actually think I'm batted 100%. So I think we had every single person we asked join the board. I think some lessons learned that are important is like, I'll say this, like the strategy we had and the knowledge gaps we had that we were trying to augment when we put the board together 5 years ago are different than the strategies and initiatives and priorities that we have today. And therefore, we need sometimes new expertise, new perspectives, new folks, new veterans, industry veterans to come on our board. And so I think it's always good to have term limits as a best practice. And so as folks come and go, it's not a bad thing when people go. It's like, hey, this was awesome. They added a ton of value. They helped us get from sort of A to C. But as we look at going from C to F or whatever that next leg of the journey is, it's natural to need new perspectives or for priorities to change. And so just creating the framework and the context that, hey, this is how this will run, and people will cycle off and on based on the needs and priorities of the organization.
What were you and your brothers lacking skill-wise, knowledge-wise, when you when you started and when you made those decisions before looking for those people? Because I think more people relate to this listening than what you're lacking today because of the size of what you have built. If we can go back maybe those early days when you took over.
Yeah, we lack plenty of things today, and we lacked even more things back then. But those, if I were to go back, I think some of the things that we were trying to solve. So in our business, we recognize that our product is our people, the quality of service, the service wrapper that we're putting around sort of the sort of essential services that we provide, right? We're not selling capacitors or fan motors or contactors or whatever it is, circuit boards. We're selling a service, right, that accompanies the delivery of those products, those repairs. And so to that end, I need to attract the very best talent, and I need to engage them in a really impactful way. So for me, like this learning and development function inside of a business, how we're investing in people, how we're thinking about performance management, how we're thinking about training, that became a really critical thing that we needed to figure out. And it's bigger than like, here's a customer service process, go execute it. It's much deeper when we think about talent assessment, succession, building a leadership bench. And so I wanted to bring in some incredible folks on my board. I'm like, hey, I don't know what best in class people function looks like. I don't know what best in class talent development, learning and development, robust training programs, internal sort of assessments and 9-box and spotting potential. Like I haven't run all that. There's a whole set of tools and expertise in that arena. I don't know anything about it. So one of our board members came from a consulting firm that was really an internal arm of a $3.5 billion family business that did a lot of like integration work, talent assessment work, leadership coaching and development. And he had sort of co-founded and built that business inside of this really large, successful, privately held manufacturer. And so he brought that perspective to our board, was incredible, was invaluable. And actually, funny enough, 2 years later, I asked him to come off the board and join us as our president full time. And so that ended up happening, and he's our president today. But that's an example of like an area where I lacked expertise. That and it's not that like we weren't smart and we couldn't figure it out, and we knew that training, investing in people was important. But again, it's like, how do I not learn all those lessons the hard way? Let me bring in people who've done that at the highest level, who've executed it really well, and they're going to help me get there faster, right? And introduce that impact, that change, those best practices faster.
Now, when we take your relationship and maybe more importantly also the partnership, doing it with your brother, what are the pros and cons? Again, doing it with your brother and with your father Robert, and how maybe the father's role has changed over time.
Yeah, really good questions. I'll say this, that I engage really heavily in a lot of like family business related circles and content, and family business, when it goes well, family business can be one of the coolest things ever, right? Getting to show up to work every day, work with your dad, work with your brother, work with your family. But when family business goes poorly, I mean, it can be the worst environment ever, right? I mean, you hear about all the horror stories, the litigation, the really funny HBO series Succession. I don't know if you watched that at all, but I think that's hysterical about family business gone wrong at the highest levels. So with that stuff in mind, like I think we've just been really intentional around having the tough conversations up front and early. And it started back when Joe and I were contemplating coming into the business and working with our dad. We sat down together and we wanted to ensure that like we all put all of our cards on the table before we sort of started walking down this path together. So it was like, hey, what is the ownership transition going to look like? What's the leadership transition look like? What's the price going to be? What if we disagree? How are we going to solve that? Like, well, what's the timing of all this stuff? And so we just had all those conversations. We lean into them, and you have to bring a level of maturity and empathy and understanding and willingness to sort of shift and be flexible. That's sort of a necessity when you're coming into those discussions. But for my brother Joe and I, we've I think been tremendously successful at maintaining a really healthy relationship, right? All of our siblings are super close, and Joe and I are no different, even despite working together every day. Still super close, count each other amongst, the best of friends. And so it's worked really well. But I think that communication, willingness to have tough conversations, knowing our lanes in the business too, right? Joe does a phenomenal job running our Hoffman Brothers brands, like the biggest part of our business, and he is an awesome operator. He's executing incredibly well, delivering tremendous value to the business, right? And like being able to stay out of his way and not sort of micromanage and engage him. I mean, I think just figuring out what those lanes are. The other framework that's useful, Mick, is we'll talk about we joke about like the different hats we wear, metaphorically speaking. So like we've got our shareholder hat where we're 50-50 partners and we're equal. We have our employee hat where we're in different roles in the business and have different responsibilities and spans of care. We have our brother's hat where we love each other and we want to see each other succeed and set aside the business and shareholder stuff. But we sometimes joke when we walk into a meeting, it's like, well, what hat are we wearing? Are we here as brothers talking about things as brothers? Are we here as shareholders where our voices are equal and we're 50-50 partners? Are we here as employees where we're in different roles in the business, and in those roles we each have different sets of decisions we're allowed to make, right? So I think it's important to understand like what hat are we wearing when we walk into a room, and making sure we're not sort of conflating the hats with the different rooms in an unhealthy way.
You've been growing the business very quickly, so where does the drive come from? For you, for your brother, are you on the same page, or once in a while you're like, I don't know, is it you or maybe it's Joe, like, okay, maybe we should slow down, relax a bit, or you're both on the same page all the time, or how has it been and how is it today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because that's a tough one, right? And here's where my head's going with this. It's like the people that have come to growth and ambition and success and change and new markets and new acquisition, it's become part of the culture, right? And it's what has attracted people to the business. Right. And it's why we've got a really high performing team. It's why a lot of our leaders have incentives around, our ability to execute on those sort of growth value creation levers. So it's to me, it's just not an option. It's not fair to the people that are here because of that ambition. They're here because it is part of our culture for me to say, well, I want to downshift now because we've made enough. We've done good enough. Things are comfortable enough. Let's take it easy. Right. That's just not I think compatible with sort of the business that we've created. And so if I ever got to the point where I felt like I didn't want to engage, I didn't have the ambition or the desire to be engaged the way I am now, then it probably just means I need to get someone in the seat who can be, because I'm not going to change the entire business to conform to my needs, right? I view the business as kind of its own, has its own needs, and like it needs to flourish in its own way. And I view myself as the steward of this business that's high performing, high growth, high ambition. And if I'm no longer the best steward of that business and able to help that business execute on its strategies and goals, then I think it's probably me that needs to change in that role and not necessarily the business. But right now, I mean, I'm having a ton of fun doing it. I mean, this is just, it's become less about success and financial success and more about significance and how do I build something that's lasting, that's differentiated, that changes lives. We have the ambition to be the largest privately held residential service business in the country. And I think we can get there. Heck, we're probably top 10 now with the way private equity's consolidated this space. There's very few large ones left. So it's just exciting. It's energizing. We want to bring that vision to life and do so in a way that balances sort of how we meet the needs of our team members, of our business, of our customers and the people we're serving. So it's been a lot of fun.
So you said high growth, high ambition. That means you've been able to, and in the future as well, you will attract lots of high level people. And on your defining moments, number 8 is hiring a president and separating the CEO and president roles. And more broadly, recognizing that my job is now to curate the very best senior leadership team I can. So maybe you can share your thought process on your views on that, number 1, and number 2, how are you actually doing this when setting it all up, and how do you attract those people?
Yeah, it's funny, if I rewind back to the start of my journey in this business, as a $9 million organization, like what the business needed from me in my role, that senior leadership role at that time, was very different than what the business needs from me today. And it's been my job in part has been to figure out how does my role evolve as this business evolves, right? So what a business at 9 million needs from its most senior leader is different than what a business at 200 million needs from its most senior leader, and that will likely be different than what a business needs at 500 million from its most senior leader. And so I need to go out there and learn what leaders should be doing at those different stages of growth and complexity, and how my job description should change in light of the strategies and priorities and growth levers that we're trying to pull. So over these last 10 years, it's really been a personal journey for me of figuring out how I evolve my role to best serve the needs of the business. And I haven't always done that perfectly, and I don't always have the right answer, and sometimes I have to change and pull back and sort of shift a little bit left or right. But in general, today, I'd say a lot of my work and focus sort of coalesces around a few things. One of them is capital allocation. Where are we placing our bets? Capital allocation. What are we buying? What markets are we investing in? What greenfields do we want to pursue? What new service lines do we want to launch? I've got to determine that. The other, as you pointed out, is around building a team, right? When I look at the C-suite, when I look at the folks, the layer of leaders immediately beneath me, maybe a layer beneath them, like I view it very much as my job to make sure I'm putting the very best team possible on the court, right? And we don't have room for folks who don't bring that energy, that ambition, that growth mindset, and that ability to execute and operate at the level we need them to. And then thirdly, I would say there's probably an area of responsibility of mine that's around culture and the work we do there. Like, how are we showing up every day? What kind of team do we want to build? What do we want this place to be like when people show up to work? What's the tone? How are we engaging them? So a lot around sort of our people and talent strategy I put into my bucket. And I would say one that's taken a lot of time, particularly around that capital allocation bucket, perhaps a sub-bullet, would be just around how I'm building our acquisition pipeline, right? As we turn to becoming more acquisitive, right now that's something I'm spending a lot of time doing, right? It's why I've been going to a bunch of industry events, getting on podcasts like this and others, right? My goal is, transparently, I want to connect with folks who are energized by what we're doing and want to build something with us.
So can you give me and the listeners like a timeline? You started on 2015, you took it over then with your brother. Today it's 2025. Maybe in I don't know how many levels you have, but maybe you can give us an overview of the growth and some of the acquisitions, and maybe then we will go more in detail.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I'll just start with what the business looks like today, right? And
yep.
The business today is about 165 million, 600 employees. And it's, we have our parent, which is HB Solutions Group, right? Which is just the name of our, holding company. And beneath that parent, right, we have our brands that we operate. So we have Hoffman Brothers, which is the core brand we started with in St. Louis. That brand has also launched a greenfield effort we invested in and built an operation in Nashville, Tennessee, without buying a business. That was just purely greenfield. And then starting in 2023, we said, hey, I think we should contemplate some inorganic growth. Let's think about acquisitions. Let's think about some partnerships. And candidly, we want to be slow in that approach. I don't want to do 10 deals a year and sort of integrate and operate them half-ass. I want to do 1 or 2 deals a year and make sure all of them are home runs or grand slams, right? That do really well, that we can all be proud about what we built. So in 23, we bought our third generation roofing business, roofing exteriors business. It's a space we really like. It's a space, unfortunately, that has a ton of private equity interest and activity, a lot of consolidation happening, but we're excited to have a foothold there. And then 2024, we bought a 4th generation plumbing, HVAC, electrical brand, about 130 team members up in Denver, Colorado. The roofing side's a little unique because that's largely like a lot of independent contractor crews that do a lot of that work. It's more of like a sales and marketing organization and production management, but our HVAC, plumbing, electrical businesses are largely W-2 trades folks. So that's it. It's the 4 operating locations under HB Solutions Group, 3 brands. And then the hope here this year is we've got hopefully some good news to announce here in the back half of the year around some additional partnerships.
So how many acquisitions in total so far?
2.
And when was the thought process of because acquiring a company, it's a lot of job and could take the focus from the main thing. What was the thought process? How long it actually took to to acquire a business, and maybe you can share how did you find this business and how was the whole process for you as well?
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts here. Just strategically, as I think about growth, we've got to access new households and new markets to be able to sustain the high growth rate that we've been able to sustain. And more specifically, I want to access new markets that have a lot of tailwinds, that are high growth, that are easy to do business, where there's a lot of trades talent, right? Some of the constraints or barriers that we might face in St. Louis. I want to move to markets where instead of having some headwinds, we've got some tailwinds. And so that's why we're in Nashville. That's why we're in Denver, Colorado. And I think that's where we're going to see a ton of growth in our business, is in some of these new markets. The other reality is, like, as we started dialing in our St. Louis operation, there just became less low-hanging fruit, right? Initially, when we started introducing that process playbook, it was really easy to grow 30+% every year because there was so many value creation levers to pull, so many tools to introduce, and so many ways we could improve the execution. And the reality is that business scaled as we sort of pulled all those levers. It just became harder. We got that business dialed in, and all suddenly you can't keep growing at 30% when a location's doing 100 million. And it's that growth trajectory isn't there at that same rate. So we said we've got to get in these new markets, because then when we acquire a new business, we're often underwriting these businesses not based on what their trailing 12-month performance looks like, but we're underwriting these businesses on what we think the potential of that business is in the forward-looking 12 months. And we can do that because of the operating expertise that we bring to our underwriting process and to the way that we're assessing the performance of these businesses. So when we bought the brand in Denver, Colorado, we can look at everything from cost synergies around equipment pricing, around sort of things that we could do more efficiently or we could do more leanly. But more importantly, we can look at like revenue opportunities where it's like, oh, look at this part of their business where they maybe don't have the right process or the right structure in place, or maybe where there's low accountability, or maybe where technology is not supporting them in a healthy way. And we're able to very quickly unlock a lot of value because there's this, quote, low-hanging fruit that exists. So acquisitions just create the value creation opportunity is so great for us because we're not stepping in and learning a new business or a new industry. We're stepping into a business where we've already done the work to know exactly how we can add a ton of value to these businesses. How we found them, largely just through relationships throughout the industry. I mean, listen, it's a big industry, but through a bunch of industry associations, whether it's Air Conditioning Contractors of America, Nexstar Network, I mean, it's kind of a small world, right? And you end up connecting with and spending a lot of time with different owners at these different events. And the more I've had the chance to tell our story, and specifically our story is different than sort of the prevailing narrative out there, which is everybody sold their business to private equity, right? There's 1,000 of those stories for perhaps 10,000 of those stories for every one story there is about an organization is committed to long-term private ownership and building their business in a different way. And so it's sort of drawn folks who are sort of aligned and feel compelled by sort of the narrative and the path that we're on. So it's worked really well. And even today, that's how we end up connecting with folks right now. You've seen my newsletter, you've seen my Twitter, you've seen my social. Like I try and put out really high quality, engaging content, and I try and tell our story in a way that I think resonates with folks. And it's getting a good audience, and that helps me selfishly connect with folks who are possibly interested in selling their business.
How has it been? Competing with private equity when it comes to those deals. They're probably not happy, but they're willing to pay more. And your advantage is this being this family business with a very long history. How have been the conversations? And maybe when it comes to those deals, have you lost any? If yes, how many? And how has it all been? And I'm just very curious because we have a lot of private equity people, but not too many those family businesses with long history. And I think it could be a huge advantage when it comes to those deals. Yeah.
A couple of thoughts on this point. One, if an owner today comes to me and says, Chris, I'm just looking for the biggest price I can get today at closing and I want to walk away and be done, that's probably not a good partner for us, right? That's just not a fit strategically with how we want to collaborate and partner with a potential seller. I'll say that what's actually worked to our favor really well over these last few years is the performance of private equity has varied significantly. If you go back to 2021, 2022, every private equity, for everybody, private equity independent was growing and going up and to the right. Everyone looked great. You could be a bad operator, but you had the COVID pull forward. You had people stuck in their home. A lot of their discretionary spend was shut down, so that they're investing it and making their house more comfortable. And so everybody was winning. 2023, 2024, 2025, we're getting back to the normal steady state where these businesses are actually hard. And you win and lose in this industry at the local level, at the local brand level, with the local leader, right? The quality of these businesses rise and fall on the quality of the local leader that's in place. And that's a challenge that we face, just like a private equity firm with 200 brands will face. Like, the quality of those local leaders are going to determine whether they're winning or losing. In private equity, if you look more recently, it used to be this standard distribution, right, centered around a 15% growth rate. But if you look today, it's now this bimodal distribution where there's a group of private equity over here, there's this lull in the middle, and then a group of private equity over here. And these folks over here are regressing. They're destroying value. They're shrinking. They're failing, right? And then you have a group over here that's still performing really well. And if you turn on the news, I think Home Pros covers this well with Alec in our industry. I mean, we've had Gettle go from 28 million to 5 million of EBITDA. We had this Midwest-based consolidator that laid off 20% of their workforce this spring. We had Air Pros file bankruptcy in the Southeast. Tens, if not hundreds of millions of value erased. We had another, I won't name names, a PE shop reach out to me that was just divesting all of their brands because it had fallen apart, and they were just fire selling the brands, and one of them was in our markets. So like everyone hears about like, oh, HVAC, look how much money you're making. These guys have killed it. Did you hear about that high watermark with that multiple? But nobody's talking about the raging dumpster fires that exist on this side of the bimodal distribution. And so I think back to these sellers, like now that people are hearing that, oh, not everybody does win. Oh, there's a huge disparity between there's some good private equity, some really bad private equity. In nearly all cases, I have yet to meet an owner who sold their business to private equity. A lot of them love the financial outcome for them, but if they look at how their business is run, I have yet to talk to an owner who's like, oh, they're treating my people great, the business is doing well, customers are happy, quality's the same. I have yet to meet an owner that will tell me that, right? And so I think that creates space and an opportunity for our differentiated approach to come in. And now back to our structure. So when we buy a business, much like private equity, we buy a controlling interest anywhere from 60 to 80% of that business. Seller rolls, right, anywhere from 20 to 40% into that business. And then we just define in the revised operating agreement the multiple at which they'll be able to sell the remaining interest after a sort of required minimum hold period. So then all of our incentives are just aligned around EBITDA growth, right? Because that's what's going to determine the value of their minority interest when they choose to redeem it. And that's what's going to make us happy, right? So all of our incentives are aligned around EBITDA growth. And our partners can be partners with us through the end of that minimum hold period, 3 years, or they could be partners with us for decades, right? And just be along for the ride and be entitled to their pro-rata distributions as we grow and as we have excess cash flow. So it's just a different model where people can be engaged, they can remain an owner, they can sell, they can not sell, and they can take confidence in knowing that the people that are leading their business are doing right by them, by their community, by their customers, by the team that oftentimes built that business alongside them for a very long period of time. So it's worked well. And at the end of the day, I think my best salespeople, it's not me telling you about our partnership. When people want to talk to us about partnership, I'm like, great, talk to the people we partnered with. Let them tell you how this has worked for them and their team. That's the best narrative.
You covered one acquisition on your newsletter. This is Ferguson Roofing, the company you bought in 2023. You acquired 75% of 85-year-old family business from third generation owner Jason Shupp. And what's interesting is that in 2023, the company's revenue was 12 million. In 2025, the revenue is pacing to reach nearly 30 million, with profitability increasing 250% during the same time period. If you can share the secrets, how do you make this happen? Maybe 2-3 things, like, because this is a huge growth, and if you would be a private equity firm, your LPs would be very excited. At this stage, it's you, your brother, your team who is very excited. So what have you done?
Yeah, the reality, there is no magic bullet in these. It's about doing a lot of small things well, right? And here's where it starts. So during due diligence, we kind of jokingly call due diligence Operation Head Start. And what we mean by that is we're learning, we're building our playbook, we're understanding where we need to lean in and what levers we want to pull to deliver the greatest value to the business in the most timely manner. Right. So the approach we take with Ferguson was different than the approach we took with Blue Sky, which will be different than the next acquisition, right? So Ferguson in particular, so these things are specific to Ferguson, that they might not apply to a future acquisition, but even starting at top of funnel when we're assessing, they weren't spending any money on marketing, like sub 1%, like sub 0.5% of their gross revenues on marketing. So we're like, okay, huge opportunity from a lead generation to really turn on sort of the lead flow. And then as we got into the call center operations, their abandoned call rates were like, oh my gosh, 1 out of every 2 customers that calls in ends up hanging up before we answer the phone because the hold times are too long. People are unavailable to answer the phone. So like, oh my gosh, how many people are calling in for an estimate that we just quite literally have to answer the phone, right? To book those opportunities and sell a new roof. And then we get onto the field side and we had all these bottlenecks around production constraints, how many jobs we could set up at once, how many crews we had out in the field who were prepared to work for us. We had, and a lot of these constraints were just artificial. They were easily solvable if we just had the right process, the right team, the right structure, the right goal setting, the right mindset. And so just stepping into that business, it was like, hey, the other thing I like to say is I often hear this from buyers, and I think it's so disingenuous, and I think it's silly to say, when you step into a business and you say, I'm here to buy your business, but don't worry, I'm not going to change anything, right? It's all going to be the same, right? On the contrary, we come in and say, hey, we're going to change everything, and it's going to be great. And if we do our job well, you're going to win. Our customers are going to be happier. The business is going to be more successful. We're all going to have more opportunity, right? Financial opportunity, career opportunity. And so let's do this together. But to get there, to deliver all that positive change, we're going to have to do things differently. And you're going to have to trust us as we start introducing this different and new change. So that's how we thought about Ferguson. That's how we approach the opportunity, and it's a lot of fun. It's turbulent. I'll say this. That all sounds great what I just said, but I could pop some of my ops leaders here, and they'd be like, yeah, that's Chris's headline, but below the surface, we're in knife fights and and slugging this thing out every day. But we've got an incredibly talented group of people, leaders, top to bottom, from the folks serving our customers to the crews in the field, to the leaders driving the change. They just care. If I were to distill it down to a single word, they care about what they're doing. They care about the organization. They care about the business. And it's evident in your interactions with them, and it's evident through the results that you just described.
One of the reasons I started this podcast 2 years ago was obviously to have conversations like people like yourself who are many, many years ahead of me. In your case, what I was really excited about to ask, and I'm going to ask, is the financing part, the green sky. And why I'm asking is we ourselves run a loan business here in Eastern Europe, and we're getting into B2B where we finance like those small acquisitions of machinery, different things. The ticket size is from 10,000 to 50,000. And I know in HVAC and in your business as well, it plays a big part because roughly 50% of your customers require third-party financing when purchasing a new HVAC system. So what is... if you could have to give like a 5 or 10 minute talk about financing and growing a business and being like aggressive when doing all this. And so what is your thought? Because you've covered this on your newsletter as well. And I think it's super interesting when you understand it well, you can grow your business very well.
Yeah, really good. So we've had a lot of success with our financing partners. At Ferguson Roofing, we use almost exclusively Green Sky Home Improvement as a financing partner. And here's why it's necessary. I mean, listen, you show up in somebody's house, I don't care what part of the world you live in, most people don't have whatever it is, $500 available to write a check for a repair, let alone $10,000 or $15,000 to write a check for a new roof or a new HVAC system. People just aren't sitting on that amount of cash. And so people make these buying decisions based often on monthly payments, right? On their credit. How can they get this done? And these are need to have things. It's not an option to have a roof that works over your head, or it's not an option. I guess it depends on what part of the country you live in. If you live in Dallas, Texas, it's not an option to not have air conditioning, right? You need that air conditioning. And so we have to do everything we can to get to a place where we can solve these problems for our customers. And oftentimes the biggest problem they face when we come to their home might not be that their system's broken, it's that they don't have the resources to do anything about it. And so to the extent we can have some really great financing partners on our bench, we can then help them solve that problem, right? And we have everything from lenders that look at prime, really good credit, to maybe if there's folks who have really tough credit environments, and the only way to get them financed is to go to some second look sort of lenders or financing. But we have sort of a waterfall and access to those different partners. And at the end of the day, we want to make those available to homeowners if they need them to be able to afford the service, the work that they need. And we're fortunate that a lot of that is native and integrated inside of our CRM. So we're on Service Titan, so it makes it very simple. When if I'm sitting at your kitchen table and we're talking about your HVAC system and you need a new HVAC system, the financing is integrated inside of our tablet, right? So we can just have the monthly payment integrated in the option. You can click apply. It can port over your customer information into the application, and more often than not, we can get a binary approval right there in the home. So it's like approved, yes or no, but right there at the table, right? So we have sort of speed of resolution to getting their problem solved. But financing is critical, and I'd say it's only becoming more important. And actually, I'm talking about this in this upcoming newsletter that's going to release next Tuesday. But on the insurance dynamic, if you look at roofing in particular, insurance companies, carriers, they're getting sick of giving everybody free roofs in the U.S., right? I mean, storm comes, you get hail, and everyone's like, great, this is my chance to get my free roof. And that's become like the entire market's been conditioned to operate that way. And so carriers are getting smart, and they're saying, you know what, we're now making roof deductibles a percentage of home value. Maybe it's 5% of home value. And what that does in effect is it says, you, homeowner, now have to pay for your whole new roof. I don't care if it's hail, I don't care what it is, your roof deductible is 5%, which is going to be more than the cost of your roof replacement. So then that pushes roofing into the HVAC model with respect to financing. Now it just becomes a traditional customer purchase that they need access to financing. It's not an insurance company reimbursed cost. So financing is becoming even more relevant on the roofing side, given some of these carrier dynamics.
And how large part, maybe it's too specific question for people, but how much time you're actually spending when it comes to salespeople who do this work and who pitching, who's selling, who making customers comfortable with their terms, their interest rates, things like that. How much of the time your company or your portfolio companies are spending on educating your salespeople? Because what we see as well is sometimes those salespeople, they can be too aggressively selling those terms, and eventually on month 3, the customer is like, okay, even though I'm paying in installment payments, it's still too much for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And listen, like nobody knows their own financial situation better than the homeowner or the individual. And I think it's just our job to listen to what their needs are and make sure that whatever we're offering them is going to fit within their budget, their monthly budget. And I think a lot of people think about their budgeting on like a monthly cash flow basis. And the reality is we have a lot of different plans. That's the beauty of these partners. Like you look at a Green Sky, it's like we can have an 18-month plan. So paid in 18 months, equal installments, or we can have a freaking 10-year plan or a 15-year plan through some of our lending partners. So like if low payment is what matters most, like we have programs that are geared towards getting the payment as low as possible. If low interest rate matters more and you don't care about term, like then we have low interest rate options, right? So all those things exist. And to your point, I need to make sure that we've selected the right and most competitive programs to offer our customers and that we've trained our sales team on how we talk about these plans to our customers. But ultimately, those engagements, we just introduced the partner in the home, but it's the homeowner that's applying for that credit. It's the homeowner working directly with those lenders and those financing partners. They're the ones sort of entering that agreement together, and we ultimately get our work funded through that agreement, but we just are facilitating the homeowner's access to these programs. We aren't holding the paper. We aren't the lender. That's sort of the nature of the relationship.
One thing you've covered and what people really enjoy, and you covered this on your newsletter as well, is you were able to grow your residential service plan memberships to 20,000 plus people or contract. So can you cover this? Like, how does it work? How have you done it? Why is it important? Folks not in this industry maybe could learn some lessons, and what is the thought process behind this and how you were able to do it so successfully?
Yeah, so in the HVAC, residential HVAC space and commercial HVAC, but we focus on both, but our residential maintenance space is bigger. Maintenance plans are a normal part of the business, right? Everybody has them. Everyone offers them. Manufacturers recommend that you have maintenance done on your system every year, right? You change your filter, you clean your condenser coil, you're swapping your humidifier pads. Like that's all part of it. checking. At the end of the day, the equipment that we offer, right? There's danger. There's electricity. There's refrigerant with the new refrigeration conversions. The new refrigerant's pretty flammable. You certainly don't want leaks in there. There's carbon monoxide, right, with furnaces and flue gases that you're burning. So there are real considerations around why you want to make sure that your system is operating reliably, safely, efficiently. And that's what our maintenance programs are designed to do. It's a proactive approach to maintaining the equipment, extending its life, ensuring it's going to work when you need it. And so we put together these programs, and in our case, because we have not only HVAC, we have electrical, we have plumbing, we have appliance repair, we were able to bundle together the benefits of having all these different services into a single home protection plan. So when people join our plan, you get priority service, right, which is incredibly valuable, because imagine it's July and all suddenly it's 110 degrees and you, along with everybody else, have your air conditioner break on the same day. If I get 2,000 calls in a day and I can only run 500, guess which 500 I'm running? The people that are part of our program, right? And so that's a huge benefit. Perhaps one of the biggest a lot of customers value is the ability to go to the front of the line, right, when it comes to priority. You get discounts on services. We ship if you're part of we have two different plans. If you're part of our signature plan, we're shipping your filters to you. We're shipping your humidifier pad to you. You don't have to worry about that. We're swapping it when we're doing the maintenance. And so that's the nature of the program. It's bundling together these benefits together with the services around how we're taking care of your HVAC equipment. And that's what people value. And the benefit to the company, so those are some of the benefits to the homeowner. Benefit to the company is we're in a seasonal business. So I don't have, in the summer I'm swamped, in the winter I'm swamped. But in the shoulder seasons, people aren't using their systems as much. There's not as many breakdowns. So that's the time of year when we're saying, okay, great, we've got to run all these maintenance visits. We've got 20,000 members of this program covering 80,000 pieces of equipment. We've got to get out there and make sure that we're serving this equipment, ensuring it's going to work when we get to the next peak season. And so that's how we fill those shoulder seasons with our field pros, is executing all of those maintenance visits.
Okay, I want to cover a little bit. We have some time left. The capital allocation and the business side, the return side. So you've scaled Hoffman Brothers and the business from 10 million to over 150 million with no outside capital, if I'm correct. So what have been the biggest financial disciplines or decisions that enabled to do all that? Because this is crazy. You still own it all.
Yeah. Well, we're blessed to be in an industry that is over 50% gross margins, that has negative working capital, right? Which means, for example, when you buy an HVAC system from us, we get a deposit in advance and we get cash upon completion, right? So our working capital dynamic is really favorable, together with really great margins, right? And we're relatively asset light, right? We're not buying giant packaging lines or manufacturing equipment. Really, our biggest expense from an equipment perspective is trucks, right? Is vehicles that are on the road. So we're blessed to be in a business where the cash production is high. So that allows us to fund that high organic growth that I talked about. And then when we started layering in inorganic growth, we said, hey, well, let's just go to a bank and let's get some financing in place, some acquisition financing in place. And as banks learn our business and our model, what they realize is our risk profile is more akin to a utility company, right? We have non-discretionary spending, like things that people need, and we have recurring revenue through these maintenance programs, and we've got these loyal customers through these programs, and covering a ton of equipment that has a useful life of 15 years, and we know it's going to replace every so often at a certain average ticket, right? So these businesses are just remarkably consistent, remarkably predictable, insulated from cyclicality. So when we go to these banks and they view us, once they understand our business, that we're not a new construction guy, we're not riding these cyclical waves and housing starts, like none of that applies to us, right? When they understand our risk profile is more like a utility company, it becomes very easy to lend to us, right? So we can get a traditional senior lender to say, hey, Chris, I'll gladly give you 3 times cash flow leverage, right? 3 times EBITDA. And we're going to price it super aggressively, right? Relative to what you'd get from a non-bank lender. So we've just had access either through our own organic cash flows to finance some of these partnerships and acquisitions and organic growth. And then we also have sized a facility to be 3 times cash flow leverage is our covenant, right? Which is 3 times our EBITDA. So we've got a ton of room, right? To be able to continue to acquire and integrate. right? And then, as you know, every time you buy a business and you complete that quality of earnings, that EBITDA of the acquired business is now included in that sizing of your facility, right? So if you buy $5 million of EBITDA, that increases the size of your facility by $15 million, right?
Okay, I want to ask a question about maybe it's mindset, maybe it's your personal growth, because over the last 10 years, you've seen a lot, you've gone through a lot, and for entrepreneurs, maybe stuck in 5 to 30 million plateau with their business, with their holding company, what may be the mental shift they need to make to unlock real scale, or to go from 30 to 100? Because this is huge growth, and in some cases, most people, let's be honest, never achieve that. So what's maybe something that comes to your mind, because it's been like a 10-year journey for you?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I also want to acknowledge, like, I happen to be in an industry that's like, I could be in a different industry, and who knows if I'd be able to perform at the level we've been able to perform at, right? I think there's a lot of things that have worked out well in the way. I mean, people don't talk about it, but luck plays such an outsized role in every successful entrepreneur's life. Like, I just so happened to have a dad who had an HVAC business, and HVAC has just so happened to become this golden child in 2025 that everybody wants to buy, right? So there's a lot of things that went right that had nothing to do with me and what we were doing, right? And had everything to do with sort of the circumstance and the condition that I found myself in. That being said, I think we've made the most of that opportunity and have done phenomenally well with it. So I don't want to ignore, like, you could be in an industry where the dynamics are cutthroat, where things are tough, where whatever, some of these external shocks, whether it's COVID, whether it's tariffs, are just far more disruptive to your business. So I want to empathize with folks and acknowledge that certainly industry plays an outsized role in sort of your ability to grow. That being said, I often think that for a lot of entrepreneurs, they become the limiting factor and they don't realize it. And I think, so like, to have your business reach its full potential, you need to be willing to recognize, like, when you need to move on some functions, when you need to hire people who are better at executing certain things that are in your span of care, and let them do that and let them own it and get out of their way. And so I think, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's cliche, but as I said a while ago, just like local brands rise and fall on the quality of their leaders, so does every company rise and falls on the quality of its leader. And I can't sit here and blame department leaders, branch managers, anybody. Like, if our business isn't doing what I want it to do, ultimately, whose fault is it? It's mine. And you got to look in the mirror and you got to figure that out. And so I think having that mindset, demonstrating that degree of ownership over the results, and being willing to build that team, attract A+ talent, and get the hell out of their way, I think is critical.
This podcast, I'm guessing, will get like thousands of downloads. So my question is, when it comes to the next, let's say 3 to 5 years, and out of those thousands of people, maybe half of your team will listen this. So one message is what you've said to them while the doors are closed, when you're having this conversations about the future. But now when they're listening, what is going to be the next 3 to 5 years? What you would like to accomplish? What is the sales pitch to the people in order to attract some great talent and people who would like to maybe be part of this growth?
Yeah, listen, it's some of the unsexy. I think one of the things that it's just a superpower is focus and discipline and doing the same thing for a long period of time. And you know how easy it is to get distracted with new ideas, new industries, new investments, and to keep your head down and be in the same business, doing the same thing, focus on the same value creation strategy for 10 years is becoming less and less common. But ultimately, you start to experience the effects of not only compounding capital, but you're experiencing the effects of compounding relationships, compounding team dynamics, compounding culture, compounding community impact, right? And so just staying in the game longer and staying focused is incredibly impactful. So what are we going to do over the next 3 years? We're going to do the exact same shit we've done over the last 3 years, right? And we're going to do it better, and we're going to do it faster, and we're going to grow, and we're going to reach that goal of becoming the most successful, largest independent home service company in the country. And we're going to do it by doing what we've done over the last 3 years. We're going to do again for the next 10 years. We're going to do the same shit, right? And I think that's what's going to get us there. It's those basics. And it's being like true to our purpose, right? Our purpose is improving life in every home, and we don't just mean the homes of our customers who we're serving. We also mean the homes of the people that are on our team driving the success. And I think if you talk to our leaders here, that the only constant in our business is that nothing stays the fucking same, which is exciting. So people that want to join our team are people that like change, they like challenge, they're comfortable with turbulence and uncertainty, and they have the ability to steal a military term, to fit foe. And I'll let people Google that. So they can figure it the whatever out, and that's what we need. And hopefully we've attracted and continue to attract people that can do that.
Okay, Chris, it's been good fun. 2 quick fire questions. Number 1, what is your favorite book? And number 2, what's the best investment advice you've ever heard?
Yeah. Number 1, I'm going to tell you, this is funny. And I'm not going to give you a specific book, but I'll give you a genre that I love. I have so many half-read business books on my shelf. Like I think that form of media now sucks. I don't want to read 400 pages of like a business concept. I want to read the Cliff Notes, right? I don't like to consume that way anymore. So literally have a bookshelf with like 500 half-read business books. Now, sci-fi, fantasy, those type of books, I'll tear through one of those a week, and they can be 800 pages, and I'll rip through them because they're engaging. It's kind of a release. It's exciting. It's kind of that curiosity and creativity. So I like that category of book, and it's a ton of fun. So I tear through that genre. One that I liked a lot recently, I like the Dune series. Everybody's probably seen that HBO show that came out, Dune. Those books were written in, I think it was the 1960s, which is kind of funny era to think about sci-fi and how they thought about these futuristic things in the 60s. But favorite set of book, I've read all those books twice. So really, really good series. Best investing advice. I don't I have a saying, it's funny, as we started actively, directly investing as an LP, you'd have folks reach out all the time about, Chris, I got this business, I got this opportunity. Do you want to invest? Can you invest? Would you do this? And I've now sort of embraced this idea that I refuse to be, quote, dumb money in a cap table. If my only value in an investment is the money that I bring, then it's not an investment that I want to make, right? So when I come into a cap table, or if I directly invest, I want to be bringing operating expertise. I want to be bringing ideas. I want to be bringing energy. I want to be bringing something other than money to the table there. So if you're an investor, I would say, how are you leveraging the other things you can bring into that investment to accelerate its growth and to increase the likelihood of success over just writing a check in there. And if you just want to write a check and be passive, that's why awesome fund managers exist. That's why you can be a passive investor and get behind people who do bring that expertise. And of course, you pay them a fee to be able to do that. So my advice is don't be dumb money.
Okay, perfect. This 60 minutes went by very quickly. Thanks a lot for doing this. More than happy to do it again in the future once you've grown even more. So again, I really appreciate that, Chris, and thanks a lot.
Hey, love it. Good to see you.